Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tour Life. We've got a fun, exciting show for you today, folks. We are out in California, baby. You living that Cali life over there, Yuli? What's going on over there?
It's smooth out here, man. I mean, it's not beach life, but we are in California.
You know how you know how I know we're in California? When they charge for bags, brother. That's how you know you're in California. Is I want to throw my groceries in something. They're like, it's going to cost you money if you want to put your groceries in something. So we're out here this week for the OTB Open in Stockton, California. I flew, so that's why me and Yuli, even though we're both in Stockton right now, I flew to this tournament and for the next couple, so I don't have all the camera stuff and mic stuff that I usually have. So we're doing it the way we usually do it when we're not in the same spot. So hopefully that is still great for everyone. Hopefully the audio and all that stuff. We got Silas behind taking care of all of that. Before we jump in, though, today's Tour Life episode is brought to you by Double G Jerky. If you haven't tried it yet, they have tons and tons of flavors to choose from. They've got hot boom sauce for, I'm assuming that one just scares me. I'm not even going to try to attempt that. Anything that has hot in it, I'm running steer clear. But if you enjoy a little bit of spice with your beef jerky, that's probably the flavor for you. You got garlic.
You like
lovers.
Spice at all?
No, I can't do it. Chipotle,
really?
Chipotle like meat is as spicy as I'll get. And that's not even, I know that's not even that spicy. Yeah. I can't.
Are you like ketchup is spicy?
No.
One of those guys.
But spicy ketchup is spicy. 1000%.
Okay.
They got garlic lover's dream. They've got smash crack pepper. They offer 1 ounce bags as well. So if you're looking for a cool item, if you're a tournament director or something, and you're looking for a cool item to throw in a player pack, you can do these little cool 1 ounce bags. Or if you're just looking for something that you can just throw in your bag and just snack on while you're out in the course, great size for that. Also, every bag sold helps promote youth disc golf with the Double G Children's Foundation. They've been able to provide discs and baskets for any inner city children and have also been able to donate thousands of dollars to families in need. So go over Double G Jerky, pick you some up, and use code Foundation for 10% off your order today. Thanks again for Double G Jerky for sponsoring this. We always appreciate anyone that is showing love to Tour Life. And obviously, we got all our live listeners. If you're tuning in live, thank you guys so much. If you're listening to us on the podcast channels later, thank you guys for always tuning in. We appreciate it as well. All right, let's jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about, Yuli, there's been some chatter over in the household over here. For those that don't know, me, Aaron Gossage, and Ezra basically do a bunch of Airbnbs at all these events. And there's been some chatter in the household about your likelihood, your willingness to accept
livelihood.
No. It's more like
likelihood. Okay.
Basically, just to throw Gossage under the bus, he thinks you have no idea what a good hole one is in disc golf, and I want you to defend yourself.
Me?
Yeah, he thinks that you think some holes that are at, like, you think USDGC hole 1 is a great starting hole, and he thinks it's a terrible starting hole. So I'm giving you the right to defend yourself. What makes a good hole 1 in your opinion? Okay. Like what do you think hole 1 should be on these courses that we play?
Well, I really feel like hole 1s are, well, it starts with its frame of mind. Like when you go to a course, especially tournament. Now, I'm not saying that hole 1 USDGC is a great starting hole for a casual round.
Okay.
But for a tournament round specifically, I think it's a great starting hole because you sit there, tight gap. It's one that you really need to get. In my opinion, probably the easiest birdie on the hole or on the whole course as far as a par 3. You hit the gap, you get it. Instant satisfaction right there. Instant momentum forward if you get that hole. Now, they call your name USDGC. It's a major championship, so you're already nervous. They call your name, and now you're sitting there, and you have a tight gap. Now, I'm sorry, but nerves and tight, small gaps and having to land the disc soft on a hole is the hardest thing to do. That's why, guess what? Hole 17 is a great 17 at USDGC, because you have to have touch coming into the basket. And when your nerves are high, that's the hardest thing to do. Same thing with hole 1. Your nerves are high, hard shot to throw. If you do throw it, you get that instant relief of satisfaction, and it really kind of tones your tournament. Now, if you mess it up and you pull it and you don't get off to a good start and you 4 hole 1, it sets for a good major championship tone. It makes it hard. So my whole thing with, I think, hole 1 being a great starting hole is because of that, only because of the nerves, having to calm yourself down, being able to throw that shot. Now, a lot of people think it's opposite, that you need to have a long bombing hole. I don't think nerves are really involved when you have to throw it as hard as you can, because that actually helps. When you're juiced up, throwing hard actually comes more naturally than toning down. So those are my points.
Okay, devil's advocate. Do you think it's awkward when you're 100? He's got over 100 wins in the PDGA. Give it up for Paul Uleberry, and everyone's clapping, right? Everyone's excited. We're about to see you throw, and then you hit first available.
Do I think that's awkward?
If I'm in the crowd, is that awkward for me watching you hit first available, and then I'm just like,
so you're trying to save? You guys are arguing the fact that you're trying to save face as far as you as a player. That's hilarious, actually.
Okay, hold one,
you don't want to look bad.
Hole 1, Jones Supreme. Hole 1, Jones Supreme. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on lead card, because it's round 3 at this point. Lead card, we have Eagle McMahon. He steps up and jump putts, lays up. How am I responding?
If it's a good shot, it's a good shot. I mean, it just depends.
It's a jump putt, Yuli. It's a 300-foot hole, and he's jump putting 200 feet. How am I?
Well, I could say the same thing with some. Well, listen to this. So you're on a different hole, let's say, okay? And this happens in traditional golf all the time, to where they're like, and Tiger Woods, 20 major champions, blah, blah, blah. And then he duck hooks it into the pine straw on the left or over into a water hazard. It's the same thing.
It is the same.
It's the same thing.
But can we at least agree that they're hitting a tee shot? The majority of hole 1s in golf, the thought process was it's supposed to be a gentle handshake, a nice way to get you introduced into the round. Can we agree, though, them hitting a tee shot, obviously they're going to have nerves, but it's a lot different than you having to hit a gap. You want to know one of the worst hole 1s? Because we were going through it. There's a lot of really bad hole 1s in disc golf. Yeah. I don't know why, but there are. Another really bad one that doesn't exist anymore because they changed the course, but Music City 2 years ago, hole 1. You had to hit that little gap that's 15 feet off the tee pad. And people were just there was times where someone would go before me and not hit the gap. And then I'm their disc is on the tee box. I'm getting introduced for my shot, and their disc is a foot in front of the tee box. It's just a weird thing. That's all I'm going to say. It's pace of play, right? Pace of play is. Do you want to have a backup on hole 1 because people aren't hitting the gap?
Going to be a back one if it's 300 foot. That argument's out of the question. But I hear what you're saying. Now you guys are so funny to me. Here's my thing. If I were to design course, which hopefully someday I can design, I have a goal to design a championship level golf course.
All right, I can't forget the story, but continue, because I just got the story that popped in my head. That's hilarious.
But what I'm trying to do as a course designer is me personally, I'm not trying to make the hardest course ever and all this stuff. I'm trying to create a psychological warfare between you and the course, because that's what I feel like is my favorite part of the game, is to be able to calm the nerves, calm the mind, and be able to proceed forward and play golf. You're telling me you guys want it to be soft par 4 to start a tournament so you can kind of get off and running.
No, it doesn't have to be soft.
Soft handshake. No, you said soft handshake.
Introducing
you to the course.
I said gentle handshake.
Gentle's the same
soft.
thing.
I said
That's soft. No, that's soft, bro. That's what you're telling me.
Okay, wait. A story that just popped in my head that is hilarious is last year, Luke Humphreys, when he had that ridiculous start, right, where he like did really well at Vegas, and then he's like on lead card going into round 2 of Waco. So Jomez does their feature on him, and he's talking about, everything. And then towards the end, he talks about how he kind of just like gets in his mental mindset. He doesn't even actually really warm up. He just like shows up to the course. And a lot of times his first throw is on hole 1. And like, that's the last thing he says. And then it cuts to him being like introduced on hole 1. And he just shakes it straight into the trees. And you're just like, we've all been there. We've all been there. It's one of those of where, hole 1, even Country Club, hole 1 at Country Club, where it's that big, huge par 5 and you're up top on the hill and you can throw it wherever you want. There has been multiple drives I've had on that hole where I've almost hit a house. Like I've almost grip locked it straight right and hit like one of those houses over there. So even when you have these big kind of, big areas, someone mentioned Idlewild, which I think is a great hole 1. I think it's just a great hole, but I think it's also a great hole 1. I think
you can kind of throw it wherever you want. That's why.
There is OB though. There is OB that you can get in trouble. But the idea of having, just thinking about USDGC and how that's like a major, and the idea that you could theoretically have 4 people on lead card step up, and the first one, bang, tree. Second one, bang, tree. Third one, straight into the log. Fourth one, straight into the rock. And then like the crowd just like, go get it, guy. Like to me, that's where it's a weird situation. But to each their own. Some people want to see that high pressure right off the bat. I don't know if I would prefer that. Maple Hill hole 1, also pretty good hole 1. All right. This I want to highlight this comment from last week's episode. A lot of times, and I'm at fault for doing this. A lot of times I compare disc golf to golf, and I think sometimes it makes sense and it works, but I thought this comment was really good. So this was from Original Jude. He says, you guys really need to reference the WSL, the World Surf League. It's disc golf on the beach, and no one pays to watch, and no one pays to go to the beach to watch pro surfers surf waves. And it's all broadcast on YouTube to 10 to 15,000 viewers every event from all over the world. Stop. I don't know what aping golf. It's big effing money. Let's ape sports that started out low budget like this, free to do, and on the beach disc golf. So I don't know what that really meant at the end, but I think he has a good point. And I actually ended up going and watching an event with Kelly Slater, who's like one of the most famous surfers of all time, other than maybe Bethany Hamilton because she got her arm bitten off. But Kelly Slater's in this like battle at some random beach tournament, and it was just interesting to kind of watch that and like see what they're doing and kind of compare it to what we kind of do a little bit in disc golf, because there is some of that same stuff that like doesn't really make sense to me, right? In disc golf, we've gotten away from it a little bit now to where players, when they win, they don't have, fans and stuff running up to them like they used to in the past. You still have, family and friends run up to you. And then you also have like the tournament director immediately like yell your name as the winner, which I think is kind of weird. I wish there was a little bit more of a gap there and actually give like an actual ceremony and also allow the player to sign his scorecard or whatever it is to like finalize all that before any of that goes on. But these guys, like, they'll come down out of the waves, right, out of the beach, and the tournament's over and they kind of know who won at this point. And as they're like walking from the ocean up the sand to, Tournament Central, whatever it is, they're just like being mobbed by fans. Like there's no ropes, there's no anything like that. I guess there are some people kind of in between making sure it doesn't happen. But I thought it was interesting. I think that's one thing that I think sometimes I'm at fault at this. I compare ourselves to maybe some sports that don't make a lot of sense, right? Like golf tournaments are played on the majority of golf courses that are either private or public, but they're owned by someone. They're not owned by the city in the majority of cases. There are some public courses, obviously, that are owned by the city, but I don't know if it's a good comparison in a lot of things. And so I'm going to keep my eye open a little bit more on this World Surf League. And if there's other leagues out there, maybe skateboarding or something else that we can kind of see what people are doing that's working and stuff, maybe that's something too that we can kind of start trying to incorporate into disc golf. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're 100% right with a lot of that stuff. I think, we're not golf. We're our own thing. The thing that I like to compare golf with us is the rules and the way that it's structured to play, because we have a tee pad and we have a target, and the rules, we have out of bounds, we have inbounds, we have groups that we play in, not twosomes, we have foursomes. And so I feel like those comparisons are fair, especially it being a individual sport as well. Those two are very easy to compare. And you're right. We're probably never going to get to that place to where we're playing on these private, the courses they play are the most beautiful pieces of property in the world.
It would be tough to think that disc golfers could eventually get to the point of where they're okay with spending $100 to play a round of disc golf, right? Like that doesn't seem, to me, it doesn't seem like something that we're trending towards.
No, but I do feel like there are big enough companies to where they could design really nice courses for us to play on the pro tour level. Mm-hmm. And then to open that up to whatever, budget that your average guys who want to take a vacation over the weekend and go play. And obviously it's not going to be set up the same, because of when the tour comes, it needs to be in the best shape possible. Like if you go play these courses in traditional golf, it's not set up the same. They don't have the grandstand. Some of them do, but most of the time it isn't. And it's this big event, and it's in the best shape that it's been in all year. There's no divots, there's nothing, right? Which is a lot different than our game. Like it is immaculate. And so the dream to me is someday having that to where we are playing on the best, most manicured at the time places that we have in the game. As far as like filming and stuff, we're still trying to figure it out. And I'm really happy with the way that it's filmed right now for the most part. I mean, we have a lot of issues as far as like catch cams and different things like that, but we don't have the budget to be able to do these other things yet. And will we? Maybe. But as far as I just have a hard time when I see comments of people really like backlashing of what we have already, just because I've come from a place where we didn't have anything. Yeah. And so for me, it's really hard for me to take that perspective and then push over to, okay, now I'm a new player. This is the first time I've ever seen disc golf. Okay, this is horrible. Because I came from a place of, hey, if I ever got filmed, I mean, there was probably out of 4 years in a row, there was probably 5 times we got filmed in a season. Yeah. You know what I mean? For 4 years, like 5 videos that came out. And it was usually the Worlds and the USDGC and maybe like 1 or 2 other ones.
And the quality was not good.
No, but at the time, just to be able to watch videos was insane to us, right? I could then go to YouTube and watch myself play. Like that was like, oh man, we're making it. Like, imagine if we could get this every weekend. And now we're to the point where you can just click on the thing and watch live. It's come a long ways, and I'm happy with that. But I also come from a place of I've watched golf my whole life, and I've watched other sports my whole life. And as a professional in the game, and what I consider myself a pioneer moving forward of things that we need to take it to, I can only dream of like being at that level to where another sport can come up and they use us as a reference to be like, well, look at what they're doing. And they're not that big of a sport, but look at where they're at, because that's also very possible. A new sport coming up and being able to use us as a reference, which I feel like we've come a long ways, and to see our growth and how we built up to this point, that's also a blueprint for other sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we have come that far.
And I think this is not something that's like unique in disc golf. I think these kind of conversations of like, what can we do to get better? What can we do to get more people watching? What can we do to get more people playing? I think these conversations happen in every sport, regardless of whether they're making billions of dollars or millions of dollars or whatever it is. I think these conversations are happening all the time. And of course, you're always going to compare yourself to the sports that are doing better, right? Like that's just how businesses work in general. Like if you want to continue to improve your business, you need to look at what other businesses are doing and why they're succeeding more than you, and look and try to figure out like, okay, what do we need to do differently? What do we need to implement that they're doing to maybe help us close that gap a little bit? So this is not like a unique thing to disc golf, but I will say there are certain aspects of disc golf that I don't think we should get away from that are beneficial, advantageous than other sports, right? One of those being kind of what you had mentioned. You can literally go, and the majority of the courses that you see on the Pro Tour, you can go and play those courses almost in the same exact setup that the Pro Tour players are playing them. That doesn't really happen in the PGA Tour. It's very hard to play some of the tee boxes. They just aren't open to the public a lot of times. And then the greens are cut way differently. The rough might be grown out for the tour and not. So there's a lot of things that will be different. And in disc golf, I think that's a unique thing. I think that's a really cool thing of like, as soon as Idlewild is done with, as soon as we go through Kentucky and play Idlewild, or it is in Kentucky. Yeah. As soon as we're done playing that, you could literally show up there on Monday and try to emulate all the throws that you just saw.
Hey, Brad, you're not being sneaky, buddy.
you're blocking most of him, but yeah, he is getting his stretch in right there. Hey, it's a tough tour life, man. It's tour life here. We're doing it live. We're doing it live.
Oh man.
All right, so yeah. I just thought that was very interesting and something that I'm going to kind of keep my eye to a little bit as well. And I mean, I just love watching other sports to see kind of what they're doing and how that can be implemented into what we're doing over here in disc golf.
Sorry, I'm so distracted with this guy trying to sneak around. For people listening on Spotify or wherever, like my caddy Brad was being very polite and trying to stay out of the frame and kind of crawling around, and it was.
No, you can walk through. I don't think that's. I don't think people are used to it. I don't think people are going to have too much. All right.
No.
Let's talk about Paige Pierce here. Paige Pierce, she posted yesterday at 3:31 a.m. I don't know if that's my time. So I guess that might have been midnight or 12:30 or whatnot. She might have been flying too. That might be why. She probably had a late flight in. But she posted super late last night saying, injury update. Unfortunately, they don't let me take pictures or videos inside of physical therapy, but therapy is going well. I've done 4 sessions so far, and I've gotten some workouts and stretches to do it at home. Dry needling, which I love. She didn't say that. She said dry needling felt crazy uncomfortable in the moment, but I felt great relief a couple days later. My arm and shoulder feel pretty good until I start to use it. Then I can feel inflamed muscles. I'm planning to rest it a few more days before I get to Stockton, and then hope that will have been enough. Send your positive thoughts my way. I really want to play this one, but if it continues to cause me pain, I'll have to make a game time decision. So that was what she posted yesterday. I just saw a post that she had a few hours ago where she was coming off the course in really high spirits. She did a video actually. And just to kind of give you a summary of the video, she was able to do a lot more than she was expecting in today's practice round. She was able to throw a lot more shots, different types of shots than she was expecting. She thought she was going to start feeling a little bit of pain or bothersome, I guess, around hole 5 or 6 today, because that's what it was happening for her in the past. That wasn't the case, she said. She was able to feel pretty good throughout the round, and leads to being very positive into potentially being able to play this week. So I think before I get your take on it, my only worry is this. Last time we heard from her, she essentially was like, I'm not healthy, but I'm going to push through it and play. And ended up being like, I can't do that. I need time off. And we hear this from Ricky too. Kind of Ricky did the same thing too, right? Where it's like, I'm taking time off until I'm 100%, and then kind of came back before they were 100%. It is so hard. And me and you probably can relate to this more than anyone. It is so hard to sit on the sidelines, right? When you're injured and not being able to go out there and do the thing you love, it is so difficult. However, it is very necessary. And so my only concern, and I get it, she's sponsored by OTB. This is a tournament that she's done well at in the past. My only concern is coming back too soon and putting yourself in a position to where it's going to ultimately hurt you longer down the line than it would if you kind of just would have taken it easy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We see this a lot. And as an athlete, like, it's so hard to explain to people what that feeling's like of trying to stay patient.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're in a tough position because in other sports where you're getting paid millions of dollars, like, you have a team around you that is just the absolute best, and you have to trust them because you know they're the absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, and they can give you advice. And when you have that kind of support, it's easy to take their word for gold. And we don't have that. You know, we're going to different places, physical therapy. I mean, you probably know a bunch of good people because you've been in the sports world a long time, high profile player. So there's benefits to being that. You know what I mean? There's benefits to being that because of different connections. Going to physical therapy and then feeling okay and feeling like you're going to come back like 100%. It's like such a hit and miss thing in our sport because I'm not saying that who she's seeing isn't the best, because I guarantee she looked and sought out somebody really good, but it's not $1 million good.
No,
it's just not. I know that because I've done the same thing.
And they also probably don't have all the same equipment and all the same resources that, these, massive sport teams do.
Yeah. And even in that world, there's physical trainers who get fired all the time when a player comes back too soon. That person who gives that advice is done. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because there's no room for it. When athletes are worth millions upon millions, you can't make that mistake. And so it's a tough spot to be in, and it's sad, but it's just like, you kind of just got to try it. That's what I think. I think you kind of just have to be like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then you got to play and see if you are, because we don't have the support. I mean, you can wait 3 more months, but then maybe it's still not good. Eventually you're going to have to get back in there, and time away. The more time, obviously, probably the better. But what if she is good to go? What if she does win and she's good for the next however months? Like, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing what's like going through my mind with that stuff and what I've had to deal with in my cases.
Another interesting thing to think about as well is the idea of no one's talking about you anymore. Right? How is that mentally? And this can be looked at on both sides. This can be looked at on the FPO side with Paige, and this can be looked at on the MPO side with Ricky. Now, I think Paige's case is a little bit, I mean, she's won already this season, right? And she's put herself in the position a couple times. So I don't think it makes as much sense, but there is still some chatter with just how dominant Kristen has been. And then also some of these newer disc golfers, coming up the ranks and winning tournaments. So is there any of that, you think, any of that pressure of, holy smokes, like no one's really talking about it, of oh my gosh, Paige is coming back. Watch out, everyone. Just wait until Paige is coming back. Is there a little bit of a worry of like, oh, my time, like I need to get back out there to show people and prove people that I'm still at the top?
There is, but I feel like that's like more of a long-term worry. Like if you're out for a very long time, like I feel like the only time that's happened to me personally, which is the only thing I can really speak on, is when I tore my ACL and I was out for 8 months. After a certain amount of time, there was no chatter about Paul Ulibarri, right? And the year before was I made a deep run at the World Championships, and I was ranked 5th in the world or something. So I was a high-profile player at the time, and I remember thinking like, I got to get out there. Like, I have to do this. And I pushed through harder with my physical therapy and all that stuff. And I did the things that I had to do to get back out there. And I was more hungry and all those things. So I do think that there is something like that. But for these smaller injuries that I've had in my career, I've never been a number one player, right? I've never been to the profile that like Paige and Ricky are. I can't say that I can speak for them, but it's gotta suck seeing other people win when you're sitting on the couch and you're like, man, I would have been there and I would have been doing that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's gotta at least a little bit come into the equation for sure, but also just passion for competition. I mean, if she's like me and you, I can speak for you on this. Like, you just want to be out there and competing, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when you're not, it's just the most frustrating thing in the world. So
very,
yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All signs show all go this week. So hopefully she stays healthy, and we'll see.
That's the thing too. She comes back and she wins, and we praise her like, yeah, she's good, and we're talking about her next week as just being dominated. But if she doesn't, then it's a storyline. That's just sports, right?
Yeah, that's so much. A lot of people think that's like a disc golf thing. It's not. That's sport.
Yeah.
That's in every sport. What have you done for me lately? The one I love talking about the most is like the recency bias. I think that is like the highest in almost any sport I've seen is like the UFC. You have someone they've lost 3 of their last 3 fights. They've looked terrible, and they come out their next fight and they knock someone out, flatline them, bam, in the first like 20 seconds. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, who's this guy fighting next? This guy, he's going to knock him out. And it's like, they're so quick to kind of forget. And the recency bias isn't everywhere. And you see that all the time too, where someone will win a tournament and be like, oh, number one player in the world. It's like, well, what happened to the guy that was number one before that finished in 3rd this week? Like, how are they not still number one?
Yeah.
Even
Kristen losing last week, and now like I was like, she's never losing ever, and I'm like, she went down so high or so low in my thing to where I'm like,
it's so easy to do, man.
Yeah, now I'm like scared to even like make a prediction in the FPO because it's been so hit and miss with who's winning and who's not. Like a lot of different winners.
It's tough to do now, honestly, both sides. Before, FPO was kind of your bread and butter not that long ago, where you could just kind of pick the same people and be like, oh yeah, they're going to finish in the top 5. And now it's getting a little trickier now. So, all right, let's talk Gannon Buhr news real quick. Gannon Buhr posted on his Instagram saying, hey everyone, it's been a busy season so far, and I want to update you all and let you know that I will be finishing my existing contract and remain on Team Prodigy for the rest of 2023. I appreciate everyone's encouragement and look forward to focusing on my game and continue to have fun with my friends. Be on the lookout for some new merch that would directly support me while I'm on the road. Thanks again. I see you out there. So it looks like the Gannon Buhr Prodigy saga has come to an end this year. It looks like they were able to mend whatever rocky relationship they had at the beginning of the season. And it looks like he will be continuing to throw their plastic throughout the end of the season. Now, the one thing I kind of want to bring up about this that I thought was kind of interesting is, do you think there needs to start being, I just want to I'll ask you first and then I'll give my opinion because I want to hear what you said first. Do you think there needs to be clauses in these contracts that don't allow other manufacturers to talk to players under contract? So if I know you're signed with Discraft for the next 3 years, I can't, and I work for, Disc X, I can't talk to you about anything contract related or coming over here or what we can do for you until your contract is officially over with Discraft. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's a hard thing to put in there because it would have to be like a company actually coming over to you. So like CEO of Prodigy's talking to a player. What if a player comes over and is like, "Hey, I'd love for you to be on my team."
So this is So this is kind of what they have right now. They kind of have these set up in the NFL, I believe, and some other maybe of the leagues where like teams can't kind of, and the whole idea is like, if I sign this player for X amount of years, I don't want someone else to be able to come in and basically steal them away from me, even though I built my franchise. Now, I'll let you finish, but yes, that's what the comment that was brought up about this. That's where they brought it from, is other leagues that have this kind of in place.
Right. So what directly like enters my mind is other sports, like let's say LeBron James, because this has happened a bunch of times, to where he's talking to his buddy Chris Paul.
Yep.
And they're chatting and they're like, "I'd love for you to come over here," and
that's fine.
All this stuff.
Yep.
And that's fine.
That's fine. You can't have the GM say like, "Hey, we could probably give you $70 million for the next 3 years." You can't have you can't have that stuff happening.
But what about your agent? Like, is your agent allowed to talk about it and try to get you new deals? Like, it's such a sketchy line because of the fact. Now, I wouldn't mind that at all. Like the way that I've seen it over the last however many years of players trying to get out of their contract early is mind blowing to me.
See,
like I've always been.
I think it's bad.
Well, let me finish.
You like it?
Well, no, I come from a traditional, like, I guess, background to where when I give my word, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. And you know what I mean? So like, if I tell a company, like, this is what I want to do. And this happened recently with myself, to where I gave my word to a company. Mm-hmm. Another company came in, and I didn't write it down in a contract or anything. And another company came in and was like, "We're going to give you so much more money." And it wasn't a manufacturer, just so you know. But they said, "We're going to give you a lot more money." And then I had to go back to that other company and be like, "Dude, this is so much money." And I had such an inner battle with the fact that I had already given my word. How am I going to come over and go to this? And it was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do. I ended up staying with the company that I said I was going to sign, and they ended up matching what this other company was going to do.
Which is the right thing to do. Yeah, I like that.
Right. But that's just me personally. That's where I'm coming from. Is once I say I'm in, yes, I'm good. I'm in under contract, and I'm going to give you everything because I have a plan for this. I want to get to here with your company. That's why I'm signing with you. And that's where my mindset is.
I'm with you as well. Like, this is different than breaking a contract that you have with the team or wanting a trade or anything like that. Like, to me, that's all part of those kind of sports, if you will, right? Yeah. Like the kind of shuffling of players.
Yeah.
If I sign a contract with Verizon for 3 years, $100 million, and after 1 year, T-Mobile comes in and says, "Hey, we want you for the next 2 years for $100 million," I can't just leave. Even though that looks really appealing, I can't just leave without something happening. And I think that's what needs to happen in disc golf. And I think Prodigy was maybe the first one to put their foot down, right? Because if they would have allowed Gannon to just go to whatever company it was that was offering him, this beautiful rainbow with all this pot of gold and all that, we would probably see a continued cycle of what we've seen for the last several years, of where players are just not abiding by their contract and basically telling companies, "Go ahead, sue me." And we all saw what happened when that actually happened. Everyone, for the most part, took the side of the player and not the side of the company. And so how scary is that moving forward for other companies? But the fact that I think Prodigy went out and actually just did it, hopefully other companies start realizing, like, hey, we need to put stuff in our contract that protects us from players just doing this. We can't be having these handshake contracts anymore. But I am super against the fact I would never want to have that happen, because I want to be able to have someone come in and talk to me while I'm still under contract and say like, hey, we are super interested in you next year. This is what we're thinking. Like, I think by not doing that, I think that only hurts the players. It's not helping the players at all. It's hurting the players. So I don't think that would be a good thing. We already have to deal with a lot of times, like not being able to talk about certain things about our contracts and stuff. Right. So I don't think adding on to that would be good for the players.
And my mindset, like a lot of the ways that I love this podcast because you're a newer player who's come into the sport, and I've been stuck in this thing for a long time. So like I've had to mold my career about and navigate this sport in a way that gets you somewhere. And that's been tough because it was a handshake, which means your word was everything.
That was crazy to me. Seeing people be like, it was just an email with some PowerPoints. Like those were some of the offers I got when I first came in. Like, I got just emails with PowerPoints, and my agent and lawyer were like, no, we need like a legitimate offer. And they're like, this is all we're sending. Like, what?
And so when that happens, like if I give my word to a company, like for example, I wanted to protect my reputation at all costs in the game. I knew from a young age that I was going to be a disc golfer forever, right? And I was going to make a career out of this no matter what. And when I first signed with Discraft, I was with them for however long. And I had to switch because of the Innova had just come out, I think, with the Destroyer at the time. And they didn't have something that I thought was comparable at the time, right? And I played a tournament at Fountain Hills, which was super windy. And I remember seeing Nico, and maybe it was Macbeth and a couple other people just absolutely torching that place in the wind with these fast discs to where I was throwing like a predator. And I just was getting out driven like by long, long ways. I think I had a Pulse, which was their answer to one of their discs. But I remember being like, okay, in order for me to be better as a player, I have to go. And I didn't want to hurt my relationship with Discraft so bad that I just went free agent for an entire year to where I putted with their disc, but I threw drivers. And Innova wanted me on the team at the time. They're like, no, you can be on the team, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm doing this because I want to be better. I'm not doing this because I want, at the time it was more discs, and a bonus structure and all of that stuff. Now where I am right now, doing those things definitely help me. But moving forward with new people coming in, the landscape has completely changed.
Yes. And
with that, the rules of navigating disc golf has to change as well. So I do understand that. And I side with you on this for sure.
Yeah. And when I first started getting, people sending me emails about sending me money for content, I had no idea what I was doing. And the only thing I was able to do was kind of reach out to some of the other people, like, that were in that space that kind of knew maybe some history of what they have done and whatever. But for the most part, I was just kind of going at the seat of my pants of where someone would say, hey, can you make us a Vine? Well, Vine was way later, but a better thing would be like, hey, can you make us a YouTube video and we will pay you $1,000? And I'll say, I'll do it for $1,500. And they're like, deal. And I'm like, yes, and I'm like I'm super pumped about that. I did that for a very long time. And it wasn't until I really had, and I had multiple people reach out to me to want to represent me and all that. And I just didn't feel comfortable with any of them. So I just wanted to keep doing it myself. But once it started getting to the point of where the money was getting a little bit bigger and things were moving and shaking, then I ended up signing with my agent. And then the same thing kind of happened with that, of where her and the agency that she was a part of, they dealt with everything. And then all of a sudden, when like more zeros were getting added to these contracts, they're like, we need to get a lawyer involved. So I think that's just kind of how it goes, right? It just slowly builds. And I think that's kind of the same process that we're in with disc golf right now. Is back in the day, a handshake of like, hey, we'll send you some discs and we'll support you and all that stuff. Just go out and wear all our stuff and throw all our discs and we'll be good. Like, that was fine. That's not fine anymore. And we're starting to have to see these not just on the player side of them being protected, but we're having to see also now on the company side, the manufacturer side, them also needing to be protected as well. So I think it's good. I think it's good for everything because we don't want to see bad things happen. So
no. But it's also, for anybody coming into the sport real quick, it's also important to keep your word. That would be my best advice for you. You say you're going to do something, then do it. Because it's funny because me coming into the sport, I grew up with a lot of people that have known me half my life. And through that time, if you're known as somebody who's like, oh yeah, he might do it, that doesn't get you very, very far in sports. Like, having a good reputation and being, unless you're insanely good, like, that takes care of itself. But for the most part, like, your reputation is everything in life, period. So keep your word.
And also, it's like when someone has your back, right? When other people don't, that's where I'm not saying, because I think some people do get stuck in a trap where they just feel like they can't leave, a sponsorship or whatever, because they sponsored me when no one else would, so I'm sticking with them. I think that's stupid. Don't do that. But what I'm saying is, like, if someone is willing to take a flyer on you and sponsor you for 3 years, and then in your third year you start really excelling, don't just leave them high and dry in your third year. Right. Finish out your contract. Like, they took they took a shot on you when no one else wanted to. Finish out your contract and then figure out from there. So that's what I'll say by that. All right. Let's talk about the big news, the big situation that is going down, like, I think right now. And I've been trying to stay on top of, like, what is happening. Most of my information is going to be coming from the YouTube channel. And I don't know if you've ever watched any of this guy's videos. Today was the first day that I watched his videos, and he actually does I don't know if he edits them himself or whatnot.
Chris Clark?
No, I don't know what his name is. Yeah, Chris Clark. Yeah, discgolf.law.
Yeah.
The YouTube channel. Yeah, like, those videos are not
that's my lawyer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're not just informative YouTube videos. They're actually also, like, pretty entertaining to watch, where how he has, the certain content spliced in there where he's talking. So I've been paying attention to, he's made a few videos in the last couple of days on the Natalie Ryan situation, because if you remember, well, I don't even know if we really discussed this that much, but the OTB Open was a big question mark for a long time, for me at least, on whether or not we were actually even going to play this tournament.
Yeah.
And that was because there is a certain law in California that talks about, like, equal quality rights for transgender individuals. And Natalie Ryan was able to use that law, that's a California law, to try to kind of get into the OTB Open, or show that they are not being allowed to play unfairly, right? And I don't think that law exists in a lot of other states. So that's why the OTB Open was kind of centered there. Now, I don't know too much. I heard rumors that there was talks about trying to move the OTB Open out of the state of California. There's a bunch of other rumors that I kind of heard. I don't know if any of that is true, but I kind of want to just throw out where we're at. But before we even get into the actual lawsuit that Natalie has against the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA, I want to talk real quick. I don't know if you saw the video, but I saw the video this past weekend at the 303 Open in Colorado. I believe it was an A tier. Aaron Gossage ended up winning MPO. Natalie Ryan ended up winning FPO. And this was the first time that we've had an outside, because at first when I saw, did you see the video, Yuli? Do you want me to
no, explain it? Yeah.
Okay. So it's essentially like a cell phone video of the award ceremony. Natalie Ryan, like, just finished winning, right? And it's like a cell phone video from the crowd, and you hear initially clapping and stuff. And then from there, you start hearing some very, I guess the best way of describing it is like violent words, like a violent way of talking to someone.
Pretty crude.
Yeah, and I don't like watching those videos. I do not enjoy them, so I ended up not watching the entire thing. But essentially what I gathered was you had these people that did not want Natalie Ryan to win, didn't think it was fair, and so they came to basically protest Natalie Ryan's win. And this was an outside, not disc golf related. Like they were essentially the people that, if you're like anti-abortion,
they're just protesters.
If you're like anti-abortion, you go to the nearest abortion clinic and stand out there and do it. So they were not involved in disc golf. You had some people from the disc golf crowd, like the fans that were there. I think some of those people were coming up to them in the video. You see them kind of like talking and saying like, stop this, whatever. I just want to first say, regardless of what you think on the situation, because we're going to go and talk a little bit more about the situation, but regardless of what you think about the situation, this type of behavior, this type of way of handling things, and you see this all across in so many different areas, this solves nothing. And if anything, all this does is divide us more. And I've never understood it. I've never understood the person, even though like I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian. I've never understand the people that like stand in the middle of, schools with signs saying, if you don't believe in Christ, you're going to hell, and like pointing at people being like, you're a sinner. I don't understand that. I don't understand a lot of this stuff. The abortion clinics where you're berating women essentially when they're walking into an abortion clinic. Like regardless of whether you believe it or don't believe it, or you're for it or not for it, I just do not understand. And to me, this is like, these are people that they care more about like them being right than actually having dialogue and a conversation and trying to like have a better world, right? Like that's because it's such a selfish way of handling something. I just don't understand it. I've never understood it. And it is, gosh, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I don't understand it either. And it's sad. It really is. It's a sad thing. That's a sad thing that happened in Colorado. I haven't seen the video, but that is a sad thing. I am in this stance with the whole thing. Rules are rules. Follow the rules. And I'm happy for you. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like those are the rules. Follow the rules. I'm pro rules. That's it. I'm not one side or the other. I'm pro rules, right? I can have my opinion. My opinion in disc golf is PDGA rules. Follow those. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't make rules.
And the thing is too, is like, obviously rules change, right? Like we've had a lot of rules and laws in the past that were bad, very bad rules, very bad laws. And we've, as a society, we have grown and realized like, oh, what we were doing back then was really bad. We should stop doing that and make new laws. So I get that. You could say like, hey, what we're doing right now is not right. This is not right. We need to do better. But there's a certain way of doing it. And it's just like when you come at it in such an evil and hateful way, it is just not good. And like, I get it. I understand it. And especially I could see how if I was a father and my daughter was in a tournament and this ended up happening, I could totally see the frustration that I could feel for my daughter, especially if my daughter is frustrated with the situation. I understand that. But by me coming out and just like spitting venom from my mouth, like that is just never going to solve anything. And that's why I just don't get. If you're looking to actually make progress and move forward, doing things this way is just not going. And you see it on social media too, right? Like social media, it has some of the most toxic areas ever. And it's just like, where are we going as a society? It is very sad and it's very scary.
I want to say this too. I'm also pro athlete. And this is what I've said before is do your best to compete. Like whatever road that is, and Natalie has found a really tough road to go down. And she played in Colorado, followed the rules, and she's doing her best to play at OTB Open. And I'm pro athlete, period. Do your best, train your hardest. And it's a lot for every single athlete. The road to success is hard. It is, period. The road to success is hard. Do your best. That's it.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things of where, I don't know. It's just, that's why I've never been like a big fan of politics too. Cause I feel like so many times people can't put their actual, they just like look at the other person that like differs in their opinion. And they just think that person's bad versus being like, no, let's have a conversation. Let's try to understand where the other person's coming from. And at the end of the day, you can still say like, hey, I don't agree with this. I don't think this should be happening, but that's where it's just like, it draws a line. So let's go into what's going on, and we can I just want to say that like, I will never condone that type of behavior, whether I agree with what they're saying, like in the sense of like, hey, this person shouldn't be allowed to play, whether I agree with that or not. That's just not a type of behavior that should be ever done, ever.
I agree with that.
So, okay. So discgolf.law basically kind of broke down what's going on. So essentially the claim was initially put in, or whatever the terminology is, in like February. But it wasn't actually given to the Disc Golf Pro Tour until much later than that. And so the Disc Golf Pro Tour and that's why we were kind of in limbo of like waiting to see what was going to happen, because the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA don't have to say anything or respond until they're actually given it to them. And it hadn't been given to them until recently, as of like a month and a half or a month ago. So they have come out and made a response. And basically where we're at right now is Natalie has two things that she is basically trying to push, right? Natalie is trying to play in the FPO division at the OTB Open, which starts this Friday. Okay, so in 2 days, Natalie is trying to play in this tournament. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA not conduct business until this is resolved. So like that's the two things that Natalie is pushing right now. Those two things. I'm just going to read this because these are things I wrote down. Natalie's counsel made the argument that this temporary restraining order forcing the defendants, the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA, to allow Natalie to play in the OTB Open is in the public's interest, which I thought was an interesting way of putting it. I don't know how that's really I guess you could say like Natalie not playing in the tournament is like less exciting, I guess. Is there like, if you're doing it that way, or is it in the public's interest in the sense of, allowing transgender
with it or
people
not.
to play, I guess that probably makes more sense than what I initially said. They cited lots of examples where California law, the one that we were talking about, prohibitory discrimination against transgender individuals. So they threw a bunch of examples in their response. The second point, and this one is very interesting. This one is very, very interesting because I've kind of said this before, and I think there is a way around it, right? A lot of people are like, well, let's just wait for the science, see what the science says. I've struggled with really trying to understand both sides, right? I'm trying to understand where everyone's coming from. If there is no difference in between men and women and how they compete in sports, why do we have divisions? That is a question that I struggle with. I don't know what the answer, like if there is no difference between the two, why do we have them split up? If there is no difference between a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, why do we have age divisions in youth? Why are these divisions exist? Why do these divisions exist? And if the answer is these divisions exist so that there is a fair playing field for those people in those division, then logically speaking, I can't be for someone playing in a division outside of the division that they're supposed to be playing in. So like that's just something I'm trying. So that's where I come from. However, this point is very interesting. So this is what they said. They said defendants' arguments seem to rest solely upon their claim that their policy is not discriminatory because it somehow creates fairness in competition, and its purpose is not to exclude but to protect. However, there is no such doctrine in California law. The facts here are clear. Plaintiff is a woman in the eyes of the state of California. So that is a fact, right? The state of California looks at Natalie Ryan as a woman based off of their California law. Plaintiff is a woman in the eyes of the state of California. As a woman, she would be eligible to compete in the FPO division at the OTB Open if she were not also transgender. Thus, the only basis for exclusion is the status as a transgender woman. This is a very definition of discrimination. And the way they worded this, and here's the thing, whether you agree with it or not, the way that the law is currently working, this is a very interesting point to be made. And I get it. If you want to say, you know what, I don't agree just because I don't agree with the fact of like, just you want to transition from a man to a woman. I get the people that are like, you aren't, right? I get it. Like if that's how you want to take it, you will never understand. You'll never like kind of fight back and forth, if you will, on this. Right. But if the California law is saying that they themselves in California, if you transition from a man to a woman, they see you now as a woman. The only thing stopping Natalie Ryan from playing in the OTB Open is that she's a transgender woman. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's simply like the same thing of like all women can play in the OTB Open. But if you're a woman that smokes, you can't play in the OTB Open. So essentially in that situation, you're discriminating women that smoke from playing. So I think that is their argument. And honestly, and this is what your lawyer, I guess, or the disc golf Chris, what is his name? Chris what?
Chris Clark.
Chris Clark. He essentially said like this is actually a really well written part of the argument, like the piece that they responded with. He basically was like, this was really well worded. So again, you're a rules guy, and right now that's all we can really go with, right? Is like, what do the rules currently say? And the rules currently say that right now Natalie Ryan cannot play in the FPO division in the Disc Golf Pro Tour. However, you have stuff that is basically saying that they should be able to play in this. And so that's where it's like, it's very tough. And this conversation, obviously you're going to have people on both sides of the fence. And the reason too, and this is the other thing, I'll say this is the other thing that's so interesting to me, is you have so many people afraid to speak their mind, right? You're going to have some people that, you're going to have some people that all of a sudden decide to hate me, right? For some of the things I've said tonight, even though I felt like I haven't really said anything in a hateful manner. You're going to have some people that disagree with what I said, and they are going to hate me. And so what that would do for me in the future is like, oh man, I can't talk about some of these topics because it's dangerous to talk about this. And so what ends up happening is we now live in this vacuum situation of where no one can really say what they think, because if you say what you think and want to have a conversation and some dialogue, you now can get canceled. So then what ends up happening is like no one says anything. And then it's just like it seems so backwards to me. Like if we want to move forward to this, we need to have as much communication as possible and talk about this as much as possible in a healthy manner. In a healthy manner. Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy how to me, like no one, no one's like really talking about it on the FPO side. And it's not because they don't care. There was 22 or 26 FPO players that signed that document that basically said like they agree with the Disc Golf Pro Tour not letting Natalie Ryan play. But so many people are so scared to come out, and I don't blame them. People are, it would be terrifying if I came out, if I was an FPO player and I was like, hey, I really don't agree with this. And I came out and I said that. And then all of a sudden I lose all my sponsors and everyone hates, well, I get a bunch of hate and stuff on the internet. Like if I'm another FPO player, what am I doing? I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about anything. And I just don't know if as a society, like take out disc golf for a second. Let's just talk just as people to people, human to human, as a society. Is that really the direction we want to go? Do we want to go the direction where people are afraid to speak about how they feel?
Well, I think part of the problem is if you feel a way, you need to check out both sides, right? You got to really study in, like you said, I'm trying to come across as and understand where both sides are coming from. That's the first part of dialogue, period.
Yes.
To have a healthy conversation.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what's missing almost 80% of the time when two people really butt heads or two ideas really butt heads is because they're so fixated on what they think is right and how they feel that they can't come over and think about this side. And in order to have a healthy conversation, you have to give respect to whatever the other side is, period. With how silly it may be or how it comes across, you have to come and be like, okay, they really feel this way because of this. And this is what's backing their argument, and really understand that. But then your argument also has to have the same merit, and you have to bring those things. And then if you can do that, that's a conversation. Guess what? That's not an argument. That's a conversation.
Yes.
And that's a healthy way to move forward, because then it's like, oh, I totally get where you're coming from. Handshake, bygones be bygones. I get that. I learned something from the conversation. I still don't side with that, but I learned something and I understand more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. It's okay to have different opinions. It's all right.
Yes. I was going to say something that I have definitely struggled with, and something that I think this podcast has definitely opened my eyes to. And I feel like I've continuing to try to work on this is what you just talked about, of where when you have a conversation, when the other person is talking, you should be listening, right? And you should be hearing and trying to understand what they are saying. And there has been so many times that I don't do a good job listening, right? I am so stuck on my view on what I think is right that I don't really care what they're saying. All I'm really doing is trying to hear what you say. And then I'm trying to come up with a response that I can hit you with right after you're done talking, without actually taking a second to really soak in what you're telling me. And I think that happens so much. We see it so often, and it's stuff that's getting polarized. Like I'm on a side of YouTube I've never been on, like this weird like Twitch debate side. I don't know if you've ever seen these videos where these people that have massive followings basically just jump around to different debates and like talk about all these sorts of different issues and topics and stuff. And my gosh, some people, there's just no love. There's just no compassion. There's just this obvious, like, if you don't agree with what I agree with, you're a terrible person, and I'm just going to treat you as a terrible human.
Right. And so going in, the last thing I want to say is going into it. So now we see both sides going into the conversation. There has to be, in order for it to be healthy, there has to be a chance for you to listen to what they're saying and maybe change your mind. You have to be able to go into it and have their opinion actually matter to you, to give it relevance to you. And if everybody could go into a conversation with that, and I struggle with this big time. Everybody does. It's the hardest thing to do, to go into a conversation or argument and be like, no, I'm going to listen, and then hear it and not let pride get in the way and be like, no, that's pretty logical. and I was wrong. That's, I feel like, the biggest problem in society, period, is pride. No, I believe this and nothing's changing my mind. There's no learning from there. There's no learning. Go into the conversation, especially very important ones, with the opportunity of, okay, I get that. But if both sides are just like, nope, I'm here to just give you my opinion and I'm not going to learn anything and this is the way I feel, you're never going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll just say before we move on is, again, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, right? If you think Natalie Ryan should be allowed to play in the FPO division, or if you think Natalie Ryan shouldn't be allowed to play in the FPO division, does not make you a bad person, right? And you shouldn't be treated as a bad, evil person and should be treated nasty. And both sides do it to one another. I've seen it in YouTube comments. I've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it on Reddit. I've seen it everywhere. Both sides attack each other in a manner of like, we are never going to actually grow. We are never going to work this thing out if both sides are just going nuts. So again, my stance, because I'm sure people may be tuning in now and didn't hear, my stance on the matter is, until someone, again, I'm with you, Yuli, in the sense of like, you have to obviously abide by the rules that are currently in place. However, if you think a rule is, because I've always talked about like, I don't think this rule in disc golf makes sense, we need to change it. If you don't think a rule makes sense, I think you should be able to come out and say, hey, I don't think this rule makes sense. And my thing right now with it is, if your argument is there is no difference between being born a male and being born a female, if there's no difference, and there's no difference in being a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old or a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old, then why do we have divisions in disc and why do we have divisions in sports? That is my best way of describing why I think there are differences, right? Why I think there is a difference between a 10-year-old boy and a 15-year-old boy, and why they aren't allowed to play football together, and why there is a difference between a 25-year-old female and a 25-year-old male, and why those two aren't allowed to compete in tennis or in golf together. And again, a lot of times too, the other thing I'll just say is, obviously there is some sort of, if we do go back and look at sports in general, there is this notion that women can always move up and compete against the men. And we've seen it in different sports. We've seen it in golf. We've seen it in tennis. I'm sure we've seen it in other sports as well, but those are the two that jump out at me. We've seen it to where women move up and compete against the men, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. We've seen it in disc golf, where Paige Pierce, Juliana Korver have played in USDGC. We don't see it the opposite direction.
Our division is an open division.
Correct. Anyone can play
it's an
it.
Open division.
You do not see people going from men's tennis or men's golf and playing in a female division. So that would be my last, like, so if someone was like, hey, Brody, I think you should change your mind. I think Natalie Ryan should be able to play in the FPO division. And I think transgender females should be able to play in women's sports. I would just you would have to somehow explain to me and convince me that there is no difference, and why do we have these divisions if there is no difference? That would be the last thing I'll say on it. So we'll see what happens. There was supposed to be, I'm waiting to kind of see what Chris has to say, because I guess they had some sort of court hearing today. Because again, the tournament starts on Friday. She's either playing in the tournament or she's not playing in the tournament. So we'll kind of see.
I mean, the hearing is in Sacramento, I believe, right?
Yeah, there were some. I was told from Chris's video, he said that some of the FPO players playing in the tournament this week were going to be at the hearing. So we'll see kind of how that all plays out. But let's all be nicer to one each other, man. Because it's one thing, like, Yuli, I love going at you, man. When you have like a bad take and saying like this hole's a great hole one, I love going at you. We can go back and forth there. I think where this hits home a little bit more is like, we are now talking about like an individual, a human being.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different. Like we have to treat it a
being
little bit
hated on?
different.
Who's being hated on?
We have to treat it a little bit differently. And again, it's just like in everything, like we're talking to each other. We're all human beings. We're all on this planet together. My gosh, let's make it a little bit more peaceful and a little bit more fun for everyone. My goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk to, let's get some listener questions here. We got some listener questions I asked on Twitter and Instagram to send in some questions. So we'll rattle through. Some of these are going to, I think some of these will bring up some good topics. Others we'll just kind of answer and move on. So the first one comes from Chris Thompson. Should courses on tour become more standardized when it comes to par? Basically saying like, should there be a certain amount of par threes, par fours, par fives, AKA should courses kind of be in the range of like par 65 to 68? Or do you like it where there's some courses that are like a par 58, 59, and some courses that are par 68? What do you think?
Eventually, yeah. Eventually, I think that would probably be this. Anything standardized is probably better. Is where I would take that. So yes, eventually, I would like to see. It has to be within this realm to be on the Pro Tour circuit.
Yeah, for me, it just basically be similar to the notion of if we can get closer to standardized pars, we can get closer to also like distances, right? Where playing 6,000 feet on a par 65 versus 7,000 feet on a par 65, the 7,000 feet par 65 is going to play harder. I think that will also just kind of help everyone in disc golf, because then you can just say like, oh, today I shot really well. I shot 62. And everyone right away knows. They might ask you, okay, what tees did you play from? You're like, I played from the tips. Everyone right there knows, wow, you played really well. Where right now you could say you shot 62 and, you shot over par.
From the junior tee.
Yeah.
Junior tees.
All right. Jim Fink says, should Jomas mic up players on the card they follow? That way there is added interest to watch post. Even if you're already seeing live coverage, everyone likes to see mic'd up footage after the fact for other sports.
I've seen things work really well. I don't think you should mic somebody up the whole time. No way. I do think that maybe having a hole, I've been watching the PGA Tour lately, and they'll have a hole. I forgot who did it. I think it was Kevin Strillman got mic'd up for a hole. He hit the shot on like a par 3, and then he walked to the green. They mic'd him up. They asked him a couple questions. He walked to the green, and then he played his next shot. And I think that's interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing that. But to mic somebody up the whole round, I don't think so. I mean, unless it's a practice round,
So they did do this a couple times. I saw like Nate Perkins do this. I don't know if it was at Champions Cup. It might've been at Champions Cup, but he did this a couple times where they would have like a conversation. He would walk next to someone and have a conversation as they kind of walk down the fairway. I like that. I think we could get better audio. So maybe instead of like miking up someone specifically, you could also potentially mic up their bag. So that way they're not actually having it on their human. And you can kind of hear caddy, if they have a caddy conversations. But then the other thing too, is you could also invest in maybe like one of those really good shotgun mics that you can stand a couple 100 feet away and have that and maybe put, the full unedited sound, round or whatever without the commentary. People might enjoy that as well. So it's definitely an option. All right. Riley says, I have my first ever tournament this weekend. What's something besides having fun that I should focus on? Any other tips? What was your first tournament experience? So a couple questions here.
It depends on your level of play, I think. It's her first tournament ever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like my best tip, I guess, for your first tournament ever is obviously the fun part's good. But if you're competitive like most people, then it is really take a dialogue of the way that you feel. And like, what I mean by taking a dialogue is like really focus in on the feelings that you have throughout the round. Try to stay in the moment, of course, shot by shot. And then if you can do that at the end, you can take the dialogue and really focus in on what you didn't do as well and easy things that you can fix for the next tournament. So a lot of people will like focus on like, no, I really want to focus on putting today in it. But then if that goes south, then now all of a sudden you're scrambling and it's not a good time and things are just not going your way. But every tournament that you play needs to be a tournament to learn something. Like you have to take honest dialogue of the way that you feel, how it affected your shots compared to practice, and then next tournament, same. And I feel like that's the fastest way to get good is the self-reflection of feelings.
Yeah, it's a good point. I would say also too, before you play, actually have like a goal, like come up with why are you playing the tournament? You know, if I was going to do, you know, I'm planning on doing a marathon for the first time this year. My goal is to complete the marathon. That's my goal. So as long as I don't stop running and I, you know, cross the finish line, I'm going to be very happy with how I perform, regardless of whether I do it in 3.5 hours or 5.5 hours. I'm going to be very happy. And I think that's important going into disc golf as well, is have a goal in mind. Is your goal to just complete? Is your goal to never get frustrated and never get upset at yourself? Is your goal to try to get a top 5? You know, you figure it out, because if you go in without a goal in mind, I think that's where you can kind of, your mind can wander a little bit and you can kind of get upset a little bit. Right.
And easier goals, like depending on what, you know, like it's hard to set a goal. You know, one of the biggest lessons I learned in my life was expectations is an athlete's killer. Expectations are the worst things that you can have. And the reason for that is, my psychologist told me this in like 2012 or something. He said, I asked him, I'm like, yeah, you know, I have all these expectations. And he's like, get rid of them. Expectations are the killers. And I'm like, what? No, I expect to like go out and play good. I expect these things. And he said, exactly what you're saying. He said, replace them with goals. Because if you do like little goals that lead into a medium goal and then have an ultimate goal, like for you, for example, in order to complete a marathon, you last year wouldn't have been able to do it, right?
Yep.
You would have set up a failure or been set up for failure from the get-go.
Yeah.
It would have been bad. So a little goal was, okay, I need to start eating salads instead of Chick-fil-A every day. And then your next goal is, and then I got to start jogging or walking. And then I got to start jogging. And then I got to start running. And I got to start riding the bike. And now I can do this. And then your little goals lead into bigger goals. And then when you're done with the tournament, right, instead of having an expectation of it, like let's say I had an expectation to win the tournament and I win, I got nothing from that. I expected to do it and then I did it. So what do I get out of that? Nothing. It's just I did what I was supposed to do. If you expect to win and you don't, you have an immediate sense of failure. That's why it's an athlete's killer. Because as an athlete, you should never feel like a failure. If you replace those with goals, you have to reach all these points in order to get to the ultimate goal, which is hopefully winning. But if you don't, you put in all this work, which means the expectation's gone and you put in a bunch of work that is so essential to get into that goal for the next tournament. So anyway, that was kind of a long...
No, that's good. No, I think that's good stuff. It's a lot of good stuff. Kyle Gotti, who wins more majors over the next 5 years? Okay. Group A, you have Ricky, Paul, and Simon. Group B, you have Eagle, Calvin, and Chris Dickerson. Or Group C, you have Gannon, Kyle Klein, Isaac Robinson. More
starting from now
over the next 5 years. Starting
Great
now.
question. I like that question.
I know. There's a good one.
The next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about me, I'd still have to go with Group A. And the reason why is, Paul, Ricky, and who else was it?
It's Paul, Ricky, and Simon.
And the reason is it's so hard to win a major. And once you do it, it's easier to do. And so for the next group, I don't know, but the Calvin, dude, I feel like Calvin might win like 8 in the next 5 years with the way he's playing. Even though
just won European Open too, so that
exactly.
Group,
so
and Dickerson won Champions Cup last year.
But you get 4 years, so 5. You get 20 majors.
20 majors.
And how many players?
We'll have to. There's 3 players in each group. We'll have to have our listeners keep us
a tally.
Yeah, keep us a tally of which one of these groups ends up winning more major than the last 5. Because I would definitely be leaning towards group 2. I would be leaning towards B in this scenario. Now, if Gannon just becomes an absolute killer like he is, and that continues, then I could see Gannon potentially winning more majors than all these people combined. As crazy as that sounds, he could. So
I don't know though, because then you're right, because in 5 years, like Paul's going to be like 40. He's going to be like 30, 38 or something, right?
Ricky's already having health issues. So, and Simon's, but it's a tough 40. One. But it's a tough one. I really liked that question a lot. That was a good one. Thank you for that.
That is good.
Radio Star, a question for the touring pros in general. Now that you've been on tour for a few years, are there any tour events that you would ever choose to skip solely because you dislike playing the course? Is that something you've seen other pros do? Does it just depend on current points? I think points, obviously, for a player of like my status, points matter a lot more. And I'm not able to pick and choose as much as, players at the higher caliber that are finishing, in the top 10 week in, week out. They can definitely choose and pick. I've luckily, like the tournaments that I really haven't really enjoyed, like the courses playing. And I'll say this, there is a difference between going and playing a course and enjoying it and going and playing a course for a tournament and enjoying it. There has been very few disc golf courses I've just played in general where I did not have fun playing the course. Very few.
Yeah.
I really just like playing disc golf, and it doesn't really matter if you put me in, a middle of a campus and say, just pick your own courses. I'm probably still going to or pick your own holes. I'm still going to like throwing the Frisbee around. That's what I love doing. But when it comes on like a tournament style, there definitely are some tournaments or some courses that I didn't like. Luckily for me, most of those courses don't exist on tour anymore, right? And so like the ones that pop off, you have De La. I've already talked about why I didn't think De La was a great tournament course. It was because it was all par 3s. Didn't really like that. I thought it took away a big element of disc golf. Then you have Blue Lake. Blue Lake, I wasn't a huge fan of that as a tournament course just because you had a lot of really easy holes, and then you had a lot of like really hard holes, and the scoring separation just didn't really make sense. And the other one was like Fountain Hills. Fountain Hills was another course that on tour,
a lot of par 3s.
A lot of par 3s and a lot of the same shot over and over again. So a lot of, those are just the 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. And maybe that's because we're out here on the West Coast and those are all like West Coast courses. But is there any courses that like jump out at you that where if you were like, oh, I don't have to play this course, I'm not going to? Is there any course right now on tour that you're like, I don't really want to play this course?
I'm going to be leaning to more of a, hopefully in the next couple of years, more of a tour that I can kind of play what I want. The points at this point in my career, like, they're not really that big a deal to me I would love to make the finals and make a run at that. And that would be great. But right now I feel like even this tournament, like I missed this tournament last year because the first time that I came here, I was wore out afterwards, man. There was a lot of big shots over and over and over again. And so I was actually not planning on playing this one this year, but Jeremy actually went to Japan this year, so he won't be here. So I had to make sure that I was here to do the commentary with Nate.
Okay.
And so I'm obviously going to play because I'm here. So this one, I don't know if I'd come back. I do like some of the changes that I've seen for this course. I actually enjoyed, yesterday and today practicing. That's another
Mhm.
thing that I've changed is I'm trying something new to where I don't get wore out in practice. Is I'm trying to just like play like pick and choose holes to play and like really practice some ones that I feel like I might struggle with and get into good positions.
Mm.
But I do feel like in the future I'll probably pick and choose a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, I think courses that suit your style, that definitely makes more sense, especially for, players that can be a little picky and choosy. Like, why would you go to a course that doesn't suit your style of play? It doesn't really make too much sense. And for me, I could see myself doing that down the road. But the problem I have is like the course that doesn't suit my style the most are the courses I also really enjoy playing the most, right? So
Yeah.
I don't, hitting gaps is probably like the skill that I'm the worst at. I consistently hitting a gap, right? However, a skill that I'm really good at and I love a lot is scrambling. Being in weird positions and having to throw weird forehand shots that are uncomfortable to most. To me, that's like where I feel really comfortable. And you can only really do that in courses that you have to hit gaps. So like that's where it's like
Yeah.
that's where it's tough for me because I don't see myself ever just like being like, oh, well, I'm just going to play out in the open where I don't have to ever hit a gap because I don't get to scramble and I'll miss that. So, all right, we'll run through a couple more of these. Ben L. O'Ship asked, do you know if the OTB Open has improved their trophy from last year? They were on C tier level last year. I don't know if you saw it. They gave Simon.
I remember.
It was just a wooden Frisbee, I believe. It was like a wooden disc.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't even a wooden Frisbee.
It was actually a disc. No,
it was
an
a
actual
disc. It was an MVP disc too.
Oh,
I just watched a video recently where he had given it to somebody and then he got it back and he wants to throw it now because it's his old trophy.
That's one.
Like the guy had it in his bag the whole year and it was like a staple in his bag, I think. And then Simon's like, yeah, I'm going to need that bag.
It's definitely winning an actual disc is one of the worst trophies. I'll say that. One of the worst trophies. I have not seen any footage or coverage or photos or anything of the trophy this year. So I'm not sure.
The worst trophy that's my favorite trophy of all time is like that means like the most to me is my I have a President's Cup trophy. Like I have a few of them. But the one I like played great the whole time I went undefeated and I really helped the team. And it was a disc. It's such a bummer because it's just like a disc with like a screen print on it. And I'm like, this one means the most to me. It's like, I helped my country win this big thing. And then it's like, they're like, here you go.
Yeah, just throw that out to the corgis in the backyard. All right. D Bubs, how to keep your arm. This is for you, Yuli. How to keep your arm from not getting blown out throwing forehands. Eagle and Simon are the notable guys with problems. I am the same way and have to stop throwing them. So any advice on keeping your elbow, your arm safe when you're throwing forehands?
Yeah. So take pressure off your elbow is what I tell people. And how you do that is instead of like, if I were to throw, it's pretty simple. As soon as my elbow gets in front, my hand has to catch up, pressure right here, right? So if my elbow goes first, which is what everybody teaches for sidearms, and then I need to catch up, I'm putting a lot of pressure right there on the elbow. If you start the swing back here and you lead with your fingers first, that takes a lot of pressure off the elbow because the strokes, think about the stroke starting from your fingertips and not this. It starts fingertips go, and then you really have to spin it. You lose power, but you'll also save your arm.
All right. I just had to check myself real quick to make sure I was doing something. All right. Steve, should a tournament sponsor be able to fill lead card with their players that don't belong there? Good question. What are your thoughts on that? Because right now you have a tournament sponsor normally gets one spot on, feature card round one. Steve's wondering, should that be allowed?
Yeah. you're paying for it, then right now, yeah. In the future, I hope not. But
I would push back and I would say, which doesn't really matter right now because obviously anyone can get into the tournament. But when it starts getting harder and harder to get in the tournament, I would say that you can get a sponsor exemption into that tournament.
Exactly.
And that's where it should be used. It shouldn't be a sponsor exemption to a feature card, but
right. You're automatically on the lead card second round. I just paid $1 million, buddy. Good luck.
All right. Tim Courts, hole changes that you like/dislike at OTB. So we can get a little bit into our preview at OTB right now.
This is a you question because I didn't play last year.
Yeah, you didn't play last year. So we'll get a little bit in the preview of what happened. So the big changes is hole 1 and hole 2, hole 1 from last year got basically split in half and is now 2 holes. So you now have a long 495-foot backhand hyzer to start off hole 1, and then hole 2 plays to the same basket as hole 1 last year does, but now you're just kind of playing straight down that fairway down the left. My opinion, hole 1 was a much better hole than those two. So in this situation, the sum is greater than its parts. There you go. The other big change is...
Sorry, I got confused. So you like the new one less?
The sum is greater than its parts. So the parts would be the 2 new holes, right? Because if you add those 2 new holes together, you get the 1 big hole. The 1 big hole is the sum, and that is greater than its parts. So yes, I like the 1 big hole better than the 2 individual holes. They're not bad holes. I just thought the hole 1 was a really good starting hole. They also got rid of hole 16 from last year, which you probably don't even remember it because it was just not a good hole. So I'm happy with that change. They've added a few Mandos here and there, which I think are good Mandos. They've added OB on several holes, which I think is good OB, going to cause a lot more scoring separation on some of these holes, which I'm a big fan of. Obviously, I've always touted. There's one of those words will work, that I like bad shots being punished. And those are really the big changes that you'll see. Can't wait for you guys to watch it this week. G Money, why do you think it's a poorly designed hole if only people who go for birdies are the ones who get bogeys? Shouldn't there be like a risk reward for going for it? It's a bad hole if you play for par, it's like very easy to par. And if you play for birdie, you can get a bogey. That's a bad hole. You need to have it to where and the whole issue isn't so much like, well, shouldn't you get punished for being aggressive? Yes, you should be. I just don't want to see any easy pars. I want to see a par be a good score and not like an easy score. To me, that's what makes it a good hole.
Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, so then let's say you get your wish. Pars are hard, but birdies are hard. Which should be harder, the birdie or the par?
The birdie.
Right. And that's what I feel like we're missing a lot of, like you said, because par's really easy, birdie's hard. But then they make it to where birdie is hard and a par is almost harder. Like you're just like, well, it's not even worth it to lay up because I could take a 5. And if I go out of bounds up there, I take a, you know what I mean? I got a chance for par and birdie is worth it. You get what I mean?
It's the way that disc golf is currently set up with how, again, I'll just mention when we're talking about putting and we're talking about like getting up and down, right? When you're inside of 200 feet, unless you have a really hard green, everyone is getting up and down from 200 feet, from 150 feet, from 100 feet. And so when you have that on a lot of these holes, you know, think of hole 1 out here at, there's a great hole that has exactly what you're saying. It's a par 4. Right now there's 2 baskets and there's a green to the right and it's on a slope. You have to throw the hyzer to the left. I think it's like 12 or something. You have to throw the hyzer way to the left. Are you talking about OTB Open?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a really good hole. Yes. And the
And
OB
then
is short.
getting
There's
a
OB
par,
short.
getting a par is actually kind of tough because you got to land it short, but then you have a really touchy shot into the green.
You could throw your touchy shot over, and now you have like a 30-footer into a headwind with OB behind. Yes. My point is essentially the way that disc golf is currently set up. It's really difficult on a lot of holes to make where someone throwing their approach shot to get a birdie and they throw a terrible shot to 200 feet, right? We would all say if you're throwing an approach shot and trying to birdie the hole and you throw it to 200 feet, that's a terrible shot.
Yeah.
They're probably going to get the same score as someone that threw a bad shot to 50 feet.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, how do we make that hole where the terrible shot that's 200 feet over time? Because obviously sometimes you're going to have them get the same score. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying over time, the person that's throwing that terrible shot to 200 feet should be getting a worse score than the person that's throwing the bad shot to 50. And right now in disc golf, we don't really see that. So I will die on that hill until I am gray in the beard, which I started getting gray. I started getting some gray hairs. Like I'm getting close to silver fox status here. It's coming in.
Welcome
quick.
to disc golf, man. Stresses you out, bro.
Well, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of genetics. Like I don't think I don't think I'm losing my hair because of the stress that I have in my life. I think it's because my dad has the hair loss gene, and I have also encompassed that as well.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more questions. Here we go. Coach Horn, after watching Masters Cup, how can you defend the opinion that professional disc golf has outgrown De La Vega? It's like saying the MLB has outgrown Wrigley and Fenway. Do you want to take this or you want me to go after it? Because I'm not afraid of those De La lovers. I'm not afraid of them.
No, I'll take it. Listen, De La is an amazing course and it's very fun. It's a fun place to play. It really is. But here's some facts for you. It is tough because when your disc lands, it hits roots and it rolls away. And if it was all grass, it would be the most fun, most beautiful place in the entire world. Okay. If it would, let's say if it's all grass, perfectly grown, nice. It'd be the coolest place. We would all want to play there forever. But the place would get ripped to shreds because your disc wouldn't roll down a cliff. There's a lot of luck that's involved at De La. I know because I used to live there, and I love De La. But one round you can throw the same shot one round. Next round, you're parked. Round after that, you're 1,000 feet down the hill in a bunch of poison oak. And I think this was a question earlier. Should disc golf get standardized? And it should. We should have more par fours and not all par threes. What do you think?
Well, I'll say this on the matter of I was so happy when I went out there because me and Ezra don't hold back, right? We will tell you exactly what we feel when we play through a course. We'll let you know if we like it, don't like it, this hole sucks, this whole whatever. We'll let you know. And we just, again, I think people forget that we're playing in a tournament and this is our livelihood. This is our job. We're not playing a casual round with our buddies. De La is an incredible place to play a casual round with your buddies. If I lived in the area,
best hey, let's play for $20 course in the world, bro.
That's still a course I would play for $20 with my buddies. No problem. Fun. When it comes to the tournament, it's not great. It's not great. And I was so happy that I shot one of the better rounds at the tournament because I knew when I got on the podcast and stuff the next week, I knew if I hadn't played one round, I just needed one good round because if I hadn't played one good round out there and I came with all these takes of why I didn't like the course, everyone would be like, oh, you didn't like the course because you played so bad. You didn't like the course because the course owns you. You didn't like the course because you know. And so I was so happy that I went out there and shot one good round. So that way I can come back and be like, listen, I shredded one round and I'll still tell you I don't like the course. Because there are people out there that are it's very dependent on how they play. And I'm just not like that. I will play terrible. Like Champions Cup, I played all 4 rounds bad. Love the course. I think it's a good course. So can get harder with some OB, but that's into another topic. All right. We've got 4 questions for Instagram and then we'll wrap up here. The Ryan kid, is there a city that is not on tour that you would like to see the tour play in? This is a great question. What city right now do you think disc golf would just be sick to have a tournament there? I've got one kind of off the top of my head that jumps out at me just because I think like the crowd would be really good. And I'm going to go Boston, like actually like in Boston, because I know Maple Hill is close and the crowds at Maple Hill are really good. But I think if you could figure out a way of like getting like if you could get like a downtown Boston course where people could just walk to the event, I think the crowds would be insane. And that would be a really fun one to be a part of. And then I think like a really cool course in like Miami or something would be sick.
Yeah, I was going to say Florida's number one. Mm-hmm. You got to have a place somewhere in Florida.
Because we had Jacksonville for one of the wraparound events, but it's also like way out Jacksonville.
So we're talking elite series, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're talking like a good,
I would love to see one get back to Scottsdale. Scottsdale is a great place to have a big tournament, I feel like. So that would be cool. Scottsdale, Florida. Ooh, where else?
Can I throw like a pay-per-view model of where you're just like, not a lot of people are going to show up there in person?
Hawaii?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buddy. Yeah, buddy.
That'd be awesome.
Send us to Hawaii, baby. I love
that. That sounds like an all-star weekend type deal.
Dude, that course out there is actually legit too. The course that they have on the north part of the island, the course is actually legit. But yeah, those would all be fun. I'm with you and I'm with you that I think there should be something in Arizona. That seems like a no-brainer. Some sort of like, it's another one too, Colorado. That wouldn't be a bad one. Like,
I was going to say Denver, high elevation.
Denver, Denver would be, that's a different one too. So, all right. Disc Golf Days asks, on tour, what expenses are covered by sponsors? Do expenses vary by sponsorship deal? What comes out of pocket? So yes, a lot of everyone's deal for the most part is going to be somewhat different. There are the lower you go down the totem pole, the more that you have kind of the same deal as everyone on your level, right? There's this kind of like, hey, these are things that we figured out and this is what you are. But as you go up the totem pole, there will be stuff that was written in for individuals, right? You could literally say like, hey, listen, one of the things that I want is I want to travel around in an RV. And so what they could say is like, all right, we'll do that, but we're not going to pay you as much as we were going to pay you without the RV, right? There's give and take in all those things. And you could say, hey, listen, I want you to pay for my travel. And they could be like, all right, no problem. Or you can say, hey, I want to pay for my own travel, but I want you guys to pay me more money than you currently are. There's all these things that are worked out. So everyone's kind of different. I would say if you're asking for just like the average person on tour, like not the top echelon players, just the average person on tour, I would say the majority, and Yuli, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say the average player, you're going to get your tournament fees covered. You're going to get some sort of allotment of discs. So if you need new discs or whatever, and then I would say there is some sort of probably stipend that you get on a monthly basis of some sort of money they give you. And then you're probably going to have a royalty or something with discs that you have your name on. Did I miss anything? Yep. Does that sound pretty average?
Sometimes a lot of people, I feel like right now are wanting the gas card. They need a gas card.
Ooh. Yeah, that's not a bad one. Yeah. And so you could go gas card, instead of getting paid $1,000 every month, you go gas card and they pay you $900 every month. So, yeah. All right. Brett Erickson, what is your favorite Pop-Tart flavor, Yuli? Are you a big Pop-Tart guy?
I'm not, but I would have to go with strawberry, probably just a classic strawberry.
Right out of the package?
Yeah.
Because my answer
I
is
could
different.
toast it.
Yeah, my answer is different, depending.
Yeah, I think probably, I don't know, that cinnamon guy.
Cinnamon brown sugar right out of the package is the best.
Yeah, I thought of it, and then I literally I tasted it kind of, and it was like, whoa, cinnamon kind of blew strawberry out of the water.
And then I would say blueberry heated, like in the toaster, blueberry's the best. Those are my two right there. But the cinnamon brown sugar, whoever came up with that concoction and that
genius.
They did something right. All right, last one we got, one-sidered. What is a typical schedule for a pro the week leading up to a tournament? Do you kind of want to run through kind of what you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament?
Yeah, but I feel like we're like outliers. I don't think our schedule lines up with other.
Okay. Then, yeah, sorry. He did ask typical. So you probably would know better than me. What is like the typical thing from the pros on tour right now? What are they doing?
Yeah, I feel like it's probably travel day on Monday. They get to wherever they're going to stay, and a lot of them will either take the day off or they'll go do like a little putting session or practice session somewhere. Sometimes not even at the course. Tuesday comes around. I feel like that's when you go get your first practice round in. You get your practice round in, you go back, you kind of relax. And then I guess people just practice every day. Like it's just when you don't have a lot of obligations, I guess that's what people do, is they just practice every single day and then maybe take the day off beforehand.
When you mean practice, you mean like literally just playing through the course?
Yeah. Right? Isn't that correct?
Yeah. No,
I think I don't know. It's been a long time since I was that person. And that's what I did, is I just was like, okay, we're practicing. Now it's lunch. Now we go back, we practice again. And now I'm going to go back and watch sports.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate with what
people are just playing every single day.
With what I see. We actually just got one, Wadkins 22 with the podcast premium subscription. Appreciate it. I did want to say thank you to all of our podcast premium members. I will be doing a live stream probably at the end of either Friday or Saturday this week. So be on the lookout for that. There will be a portion of that live stream that will just be, the comments will just be coming from our Tour Life crew. So if you are subscribed on the YouTube channel and you want to be a part of the Tour Life crew, just check out the channel memberships below. We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for all that. We had no picks last week, Yuli, because it was an off week.
Brody, I got a question though. Back to that guy's question. I need to know what your schedule is like. I want you to go through your Monday to the very end. What is your schedule? Because I know it's absolutely ridiculous. And I've been wondering, because you're just on like 43 podcasts and your live streams, and then you film with Ezra. Take me through Monday. Everybody wants to know, to Sunday. Go.
Yeah. So Monday I'm either, so this is like if I'm on tour. So this week was obviously different because I flew in. So usually, depending on how I play on the tournament, if I have a later tee time on Sunday, I'll normally stay the night Sunday and then drive on Monday. This year, I've been able to make the drive a lot of times on Sunday, unfortunately. So I get into where the next tour stop is on Monday. Me and Ezra will either get out first thing in the morning and film, or I'll either go to the gym in the morning or run, one of those two things. But we always try to film our practice rounds on Monday. Then when our practice rounds are done, I have to head back to find Wi-Fi to start transferring all the footage over to our editors so they can start editing those videos. And then at that point, I will either go to the gym or run if I didn't do that in the morning, and I will do extra putting practice or whatnot I'm just saying all the stuff that's actually like relevant to like disc golf. I'm not saying all the stuff outside of that. Tuesday is pretty much the same exact thing. We're just not filming. So gym, run, and then a practice round. Depending on how long the course is, it might be 2 practice rounds on Tuesday or just some field work and some putting. Wednesday is my day off in the gym, so I don't have to do that. I normally will also take that day off running as well. And then back on the course for practice, more field work. And Tuesday, sorry, I forgot. Tuesday morning, we filmed debate night. So Tuesday morning, I'll wake up and do debate night first thing in the morning. Normally we film at like 8 o'clock East Coast time. So that's 7 if I'm in Central or even earlier. And then, okay, so back to Wednesday. We'll do that throughout the whole day. Then me and Yuli jump on here for tour life with you guys. Then we have Thursday and Friday. Well, Friday's the tournament. Thursday is back to the gym, back to running, last practice round, get everything sorted, more putting practice. And then sometimes I'll bounce on and do a live stream. I want to do more of those because obviously these podcasts is just kind of more you guys just listening in on me and Yuli's conversations and whatever guests that we have on here. But the live streams are really fun because that's my time to kind of more interact with the chat and get to talk to you guys. So I want to do more of those. I've done a couple of them this year. I want to do more of those. And that's pretty much it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's it keeps me busy, and then obviously there's a bunch of other stuff outside of that that's like not disc golf pro tour related that can just whatever. All right, you ready for picks, brother? You ready for?
I am.
You know what's going down this week?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Silas, pick a number. Oh, Jesus with the $19.99. Have a great and blessed night. Thank you so much. We actually had another donation. I just want to say you're a cool guy. Can't wait to see you win a huge tournament. And I'm very, very, very sorry for the Brody. I don't even know what that is. No worries. Okay. Thank you for the $19.99. Silas, pick. Have a number in your head, Silas, between 1 and 5, and me and Yuli will guess it. Yuli, you guess first. We're gonna start doing this.
3.
I'm going to go 4. Okay, Yuli, you get first pick. Okay, Yuli got first pick, guys. The number was 1. Yuli get first picked. Yuli, we never remember who picks first, and so I think we just will start doing that moving forward.
Okay.
I think that'll be fair.
I'm
all
looking
right,
at the board.
Picks that are off the table.
Yeah.
Picks that are off the table. Where's my boy Steez? Oh, smokes. Size has it right here. I can't read that crap. Hold on. Can you read that, Yuli? Is that big enough for you to read?
Yeah.
Eagle, Adam Hammies, Cole Redallin. Is that Barella? Barella, Paul, and Ezra. Dang, Ezra would have been a good pick this week, I think. All right. First pick, Yuli. Who are you taking at the OTB Open? Are you taking the last year's champ, Simon Lizotte?
I got to take Calvin.
It's just a lot of low ceiling shots out here. Not a bad pick. Not a bad pick.
You pick him for any tournament ever. That's why I'm saying we need to take a lot of these guys just off the board.
Oh, you just want to... I don't know if people would like that though. We're just like dark horse picking people.
But we would like it.
All right. With the amount of rollers that I think last year there was a lot of rollers. Okay. A lot of rollers last year. I think there's even going to be more rollers this year with the changes they've made on some of these holes. With that said, someone that has a really freaking good roller game and also is really freaking good at this course, Simon Lizotte, I think is a no-brainer. So I'm going Simon Lizotte. And then my second pick is another person that is also really freaking good at rollers and someone that might be like a little hungry after, coming so close in Jonesboro, but so far at the end of it. I'm going with Eagle. I think he's ready. I think he's ready to spread his wings this week. All right, you got the 4th and 5th pick. You better pick good because right now my team is my picks right now are. I'm already feeling
So
like
you
I'm
pick,
gonna. I got Simon and Eagle.
Eagle. No,
Yeah,
Eagle's off the board. I thought.
No, we didn't pick Eagle last week. Did I pick Eagle last week too? Or was he on the board? Silas, pull up the thing again. Did I pick him?
Yeah.
I did pick him. Crap. Dang it. All right. Thanks for keeping me. Hey, thanks for keeping me.
You're welcome. I could have just let it go,
Yeah, you could have. All right. In
like
that
you did
case,
to me.
I didn't know though. I didn't know. I did not do it on purpose. You know who I'm going with I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to win, but the added OB I think is going to play an element. I'm going Nate Sexton. I'm going the man. He's coming out from the booth. I'm going Nate Sexton. Let's go, baby.
Wow. Okay.
I think he did pretty good at this tournament. Yeah.
We picked Gossage last week.
Oh, we did not pick Gossage. No, he's on the board.
I'm going Goss.
I played with him today. He played really well. Score sets very well for him.
Yep, Gossage. I'm going with him, and he's played the last 2 years really well here. And I get another pick.
You do.
Okay, wrap around. Pick is James Proctor.
Dang it! Good pick. Good pick. That's a very good pick. I'm going to go.
Wait, did I pick Proctor last week?
No. Proctor was not picked.
No. Okay.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, you're right.
Gosh. Man. Give it to me. Give me Nicklaus. I'm taking Nicklaus. Lots of OB. Lots of backhand angle shots.
Good pick. Good roller game.
Good roller game. I'll take Nicklaus to the bank. Okay, there you have the picks. You got Yuli with Calvin, Aaron Gossage, James Proctor, myself. I went with Simon, Nate Sexton, and Nicklaus. That's what you have for OTB Open this week. Man, almost picked myself again. I was this close. The confidence is building though, so that's good. Like at the beginning of the year, I was like, "Oh heck no, I'm not picking myself." But now I'm like starting to think about it, and so that's how I know the confidence is trending in the right direction. So, all good there moving forward. Yuli, you got anything else going on that you want to tell the people? This was an interesting tour life tonight. It was an interesting podcast. I think there was a lot of.
I liked it.
Yeah, I don't think we always have to do the nuts and bolts. I think sometimes, we can go off the rails a little bit and just talk some human stuff, if you will, right? Because I think I'll leave you with this. I think sometimes we get in traps of where we don't ever want to just sit and listen to our thoughts. And so we're constantly having a screen in front of our face, watching TV, listening to a podcast, get in the car, turn on the music. We're constantly having some sort of distraction to keep us from just with our thoughts, because it is scary just to be with your thoughts. And I think sometimes that's good. I think it's sometimes good for us to just take a step back and listen to ourselves. And let's just try to be nice to one another, man. I think that's the big key. We can disagree. We can have different opinions, different ideas of what should and shouldn't happen. But man, let's just try to be nice to one another. So
I agree.
All right.
Hey, hole 1 at this tournament. Not a great starting hole, man.
All right, folks, there you have it. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.